Welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Thomas. Today, we're going to be digging deep into safety and safety culture, psychological safety, a little bit about mental health, and a whole bunch more. To help tell that story today, I'm joined by Kaitlin Frank, who is a returning guest on Digital Builder, the CEO of eMOD, and Rob Lynch, the CEO of Dome Construction. How are you both doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, I'm glad that you came back. We had a great conversation about careers the last time that you were on Digital Builder, so it's going to be fun to kind of dig into the other side and a bit more about what your company's all about. Rob, how are you feeling?
I'm doing well, too. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. Well, let's jump straight into the fun. And Rob, I'm going to throw the first question your direction. Can you set the stage for me and highlight what you would consider a more typical safety approach and some of the risks or missed opportunities that come with that?
It might be a bit presumptuous for me to speak for the entire industry.
That's fair.
But I do think there's merit in the observation that many folks think that safety performance can be imposed through a strictly compliance mindset or compliance structures. The risk associated with that is several layers of it. First, you can have compliance and not have safety performance, good safety performance. And I think that's probably the biggest one. And I also think just the fact that if you impose it on people, you don't get the buy-in. So it won't be sustainable either. And I think those are probably the two biggest risks with that mindset and that process when it comes to safety.
It makes a lot of sense. Kaitlin, I'd be curious to hear your perspective there, if you have anything else to add beyond what Rob shared.
Yeah, I'd say safety culture is such a big part of being in the field, but it hasn't always been that way. Yeah. And when I was running work, safety always felt like a checklist, and I didn't want it to feel like a checklist. For me, it was very much not if an incident or accident was going to happen, it was more when. And I wanted to focus on how do I make sure that those incidents and accidents aren't happening? How do we prevent them? Or how do we decrease the severity of them? It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. But how do we decrease the severity?
And I think any of us who have spent a lot of time tied to the construction industry know somebody that's had an incident or something happened. And from my career, I hold very heavy. It was a challenging moment for the company to just unpack those moments and talk about them and why what happened did happen and how we get kind of deeper into the weeds. And I'm grateful for folks like both of you who are thinking very intentionally about how we can do this beyond just the checklist and really define culture more deeply. Kaitlin, I'd be kind of curious, what are some common myths or misconceptions you might hear tied to safety or safety culture? Like, what might you hear that comes across your inbox or just word of mouth that maybe makes you cringe and you wish people would stop saying?
Oh my gosh. Rob kind of touched on it. I don't have incidents, so I don't have a safety problem.
Yeah.
It is so far from the truth. Because you're not recording it, because you're not documenting, doesn't mean it's not happening. And I feel like so many times people just want to get the job done. And they're trying to get it done faster, less expensive, get there, just do the job. And they truly don't think that they have a problem. And then on the flip side, I've also heard from customers that we don't want the data. There's too much data out there. We don't want to know. And if you don't want to know what's actually happening, you don't want to actually solve the problem. Yeah. And that to me just makes my skin crawl because these are people at the end of the day. This is someone's father, son, daughter, mother that we're talking about, and not reporting it doesn't solve the problem. Not identifying the issue doesn't solve the problem. So there's a bigger cultural issue in the industry that needs to be resolved before we can even tackle that problem.
Yeah. It's a heavy moment, and I appreciate you bringing the humanity back into it because we're talking about people, and I think everybody is entitled to a safe working environment where the leadership and the people around you care about what you're doing, and the processes that are put in place are very intentional to maintain that level of safety. In construction, I have a lot of empathy because it's a challenging environment to work in. A lot of things are happening. There are risks, but I'm grateful for the conversation we're having now because I know we can do better and we have to do better.
Of course.
Rob, any other misconceptions from your end that you hear that you wish you could kind of do away with in the world?
Well, picking up on Caitlin's point, I think that myth that safety has to be imposed on the workers, I think is just fraught with peril in a way. When folks get up in the morning, they want to go to work. They want to do a good job. They want to be safe. They want to go home safe. They want the people around them to be safe. And I think this misperception that people don't want to be safe. or it has to be imposed upon them is just off base. I think folks, if there's the right strategic mindset, the right culture, and they're given the right tools, the workers themselves will take ownership of the planning, of the safety, both for themselves and the people around them. And so getting out of that kind of top-down, compliance-driven only mindset, culturally and also operationally, will lead to tremendous benefits.
Yeah.
Also, that safety takes too much time.
Mm-hmm.
Safety doesn't take too much time. Incidents take too much time.
Yeah.
Incidents take away from a project. Incidents, put everything at a halt. Think about how much time it actually takes to report an incident, go through the incident investigation, the actual on-site, stand down, whatever it may be. That's what the field sees. Then there's the operational, HR, insurance. There's a whole other side of this that goes on for months and years that no one talks about. And so people are, I don't want to do paperwork. It takes too much time. I don't want to watch your orientation. It takes too much time. Those little things here and there are preventing the bigger time block, And I think the focus on signing in takes too much time. Again, go back to the why. Why are we doing this? It's a people thing, but it's also like we're trying to save your time and help people do what they want to be doing. They want to be building.
Yeah.
They don't want to be filling out paperwork. I know that. But if you don't fill out the paperwork, the amount of piles of paperwork you're about to create is never ending.
And I think also when big moments happen, there's a productivity impact as well because people are spooked afterwards and very understandably so. And it takes a while to kind of come back from that and find that normalcy, whether it's tied to work or outside of work or otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think just making sure you're setting those expectations appropriately as well, because let's be real, the owner expectations for scheduled durations continue to shrink. And if the leadership organization is pushing so hard, well, where are you going to find the extra 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day? That's when everything you're talking about starts to get moved by the wayside. And if there's no accountability mixed into that conversation, well, what else is going to happen? Like, it's not surprising, to say the least, even if it is deeply unfortunate, because we're talking about people's lives here.
The point Kaitlin made, I think, is worth really digging in on. You mentioned all the follow-on things that have to happen to safety incidents, but you've also mentioned, too, there is a profound impact on the culture of a project, on the team environment of a project that does not go away.
Yeah.
That lasts, and it inhibits productivity, efficiency, collaboration throughout the job there as well. So the repercussions are over across many aspects of the job.
Yeah.
So,
well, I appreciate the context just on how this is showing up and things folks say that I wish we could, do away with. Rob, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the concept of compliance-driven safety programs. I know we've kind of touched on it at a high level. Could you unpack what that really means a little bit deeper and kind of what that brings to the projects?
There's no amount of safety officers or procedures that can be deployed, right, that can impose safety performance. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the individual workers who are exposed to the hazards, and they're the ones who have to have the tools and the mindset and ultimately the moment of pause to step away from a hazard situation and fix it. Get the right tool, get the right equipment, follow the right process to make sure that they're not exposing themselves or their coworkers to hazards, right? So from a safety program to have that effectiveness, it needs to touch every worker every day. I call it the 4 A's. Each day you have to impact their attitude, their awareness, their actions, and their accountability when it comes to safety. And that can't just funnel through one individual, a safety officer. It needs to be throughout every individual who's doing the work and who's being exposed to the hazards. And if you do that, like I said, you've given them the planning, the tools, the voice, the agency to work in a safe manner, to spot, if they do spot hazards, that they can raise their hand and get that hazard removed or mitigated. And so it just creates an environment where now all of a sudden maybe having one safety officer, every single person on the job site is taking full ownership and accountability for not only their safety, but those around them. And I think that's the beauty of what we've seen with eMOD is that daily engagement by each worker that allows that to happen.
I appreciate that. And there's a lot of intention that goes behind, I think, shifting this perspective. And I'd love to hear from both of you. Maybe Rob, if you could start, could you tell me a bit more about what you would consider a modern safety approach or an improved one based on I guess the counter to everything we've been talking about so far. And what really drove you to make a lot of the changes that you have that have improved the safety culture at Dome and, brought the creation of eMOD into into the fold as well? Like, what are you doing differently at Dome? Like, how does this differ from other organizations?
Well, when you look at mentioning the fact that you need to make everybody engaged and take ownership and accountability for their safety and those around them, a big part of that is, okay, we talked earlier about compliance is only one facet of safety, right? For any process to lead to a positive outcome, you kind of have to go through 5 phases. And the first ours is like, are we doing it? Are we following the processes? And then the next phase is, are we doing it well? Then the third phase evolves to, are we improving on it? And then the fourth phase is ultimately, can we spot outlier trends or adverse conditions proactively before they become incidents or risks and fix them? And then finally, is it sustainable? Can we repeat this on and on? Does it become habit of your workers? So those are kind of the 5 levels of outcomes you're looking for. The first one is, are we doing it? That's the compliance mindset. And unfortunately, where the industry stops is once they've hit that, they've forgotten the other 4. You talked about too much information. Well, that's what happens. They'll just stop at that first layer and they don't go to the next 4. They don't have the ability to go to the next 4 so they can truly get the positive outcomes. And that's where using the platform that engages all the workers proactively every day in a planning process to plan for safety has had the tremendous benefits that we've seen.
So you've both emphasized putting safety back into the hands of your field workers. I'd like to know a little bit more about what that looks like in practice, especially coming from eMOD and your journey from Dome to the organization that you lead today.
For me, it was always about putting safety back in the hands of the people who are at risk, who's actually getting hurt. As the daughter of a contractor, I never wanted that phone call that, hey, something happened to your dad.
Yeah.
I, as a superintendent, never wanted to make that phone call, something's happened to your parent. And safety always felt like it was very much that checklist that I had mentioned, not about the people. And so when we started talking about eMOD and the creation of eMOD, it was very focused on how do we take a technology and make it useful for the field so they can get back to building. And it was something that wasn't going to be pencil whipped. It wasn't just going to be checking the box. I was getting pre-task plans before that would say, install glass, don't break glass. Gravity was a hazard. Be safe was the safe plan, signed by an entire crew.
Yeah.
And
she handed me a binder of all those.
I did.
I started this saying, this is the nonsense we see in the field.
Yeah.
And part of me laughed at it. It is what it is. It was my job site and my job to make sure that these people were safe. And it wasn't being taken seriously in the field. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that it was being taken seriously, but also that the field knew what the safety program was. It became abundantly clear that safety programs were stopping at operations. They were stopping at management and leadership teams. And that, yes, superintendent level would know what the program was. But if you started talking to carpenters and laborers and, talking to all the field crews, there was a disconnect. They generally knew what the expectations were. But they needed help. They needed to figure out what conversations to be had. It wasn't owned by them. And I think that's the biggest shift that I've seen with our clients is that eMOD is a software that allows a company to execute their safety program. We're not telling anyone how to do their safety program. It is just an opportunity to execute your program. But seeing a carpenter or a laborer, when you walk onto a job site and they're like, stop, you need to sign in, you need to do this orientation, we need to make sure X, Y, and Z. The field is owning safety now, and it is a very different atmosphere than walking onto a job site 5-10 years ago, where, yeah, you walk through and you saw the signs that you had to have PPE on and complete certain requirements. But I think the entire industry is shifting in some capacity of away from just like check the box to there is a culture that needs to be part of it.
It makes a lot of sense. And it's encouraging to hear that you're empowering folks because they get to take control of, they get more agency in this conversation in a way that they might have not previously. I'm not surprised that, when you have to fill out a bunch of paperwork that by hand that you might not know the origination behind or the reason behind, you're going to do it as quickly as possible. And it might introduce some chuckles where you go, all right, we have the glass, gravity is the risk. Like, that's a little absurd.
I mean, they're
it's
not
true.
wrong.
They're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
Ultimately, gravity is the risk.
It is in so many ways.
But like, be safe as a safe plan is not.
Yeah, like
And really, it's just putting safety back into their hands, making them own it, allowing them to own it so that they're empowered to stop work. They're empowered to make a change. They're empowered to say something. And that's been the biggest shift.
Rob, do you have any additional thoughts from your seat as far as the way the tools have evolved at eMOD and the impacts they've had at your organization?
Well, I think the other side of the coin, to amplify her point, is also sometimes those safety programs are just for management.
Mm-hmm.
And you fill out
Very
the
much.
form and there's been no impact on safety performance in the field, right? But yet you've checked the box. You're compliant. And that's once again where it stops and you don't get that performance. You're not adhering to your culture. You're not creating a more productive, safe work environment. You're not getting the benefits of the business outcomes because you just stop at that point. So I think the engagement of eMOD, the way it brings those folks in, has really flipped that switch a little bit. Now they take full ownership of the safety of themselves and the people around them. It gets planned into their stuff. And I think another point that you brought up early on that was, it's interesting if one were to believe the Bureau of Labor Statistics, somewhere like high 80s, low 90s% of the people in the construction industry are the field workers, the ones who are exposed to all the hazards, right? Which leaves roughly 8% that are doing the management, the administration standpoint. Yeah. Yet there's hundreds of tools, technologies for the office workers to do their job efficiently and effectively. There's maybe a handful for the field. And that's curious when you look at it just on the surface like that, right? If there's this misconception that field folks won't use technology, I think that's been kind of blown out of the water. If you create something that they see the benefit in, that helps them do their job productively and safely, they'll use it. Everybody's tech enabled now. Everybody has their phone with Spotify and all the other stuff, Uber Eats on it, right? So if you build something that is easily deployable and can really lead to a positive outcome, they'll use it. And I think eMOD was a great example of that theory being put to the test and coming through spot on.
Yeah. And in the amount of paperwork that we do have to fill out, whether it's done digitally on an iPad or by hand, I think there's a lot of onus behind understanding the why behind it as well. Because like if you're being compliant, like I'm guilty of it as well, where if I have a massive form I have to fill out, there's a ton of questions that I either find unnecessary, don't understand the reason the question is going to be asking. You're going to get one-word answers so I can push the next button. And that's not impacting my safety or my wellness. It's just I'm irritated by the form. And so I get why that happens. And I think this spans beyond safety as well, regardless of the documentation that you're choosing to capture out in the field, because the pressure is high, the scheduled durations are ever shrinking, and every minute that you're, working on the iPad instead of pouring concrete or installing conduit or whatever you might be doing, like you have to understand that balance. And I think the leadership teams really have to help people understand, the pressure is high. We want to finish this building, but the safety piece is still incredibly important. And we don't forego this in order to achieve a schedule goal or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
And if you're not communicating that to people, they don't know because you've never told them. Right. And somebody might not have ever told them that before, which is really unfortunate, but I think can reign true for a lot of people.
I think that is signified at a job site very simply. The narrative used to be, here, fill out this form. And now it's about, what are you doing today and what are the hazards associated with it?
Yeah.
And just that simple switch first thing in the day before you go to work is where the difference starts.
It makes sense. And it's encouraging to hear people are having that conversation now. And I'm sure, well, actually my next question kind of gets into that a little bit. Rob, you'd mentioned earlier the business aspect. So the insurance, the EMR, bidding. How are you able to connect your safety culture to the business performance? Can you talk to me a bit more about that, especially for executives who might be skeptical about everything we're talking about right now?
Well, I guess, again, there's layers. And the first important layer is the human layer. Like you said, that ultimately you're giving your workers the best chance to go home safe and those around them to go home safe. So there's that component of a level of success right there. From a project outcome standpoint, there's all kinds of studies and thought leadership about how if you have enhanced safety performance, good safety performance, you're going to have more predictable schedule performance. You're going to have more predictable budget performance. You're going to have more predictable quality performance. And that's kind of a given that is not always directly measurable, but we know it's there. And then from a business outcome standpoint, to your point, since we've deployed eMOD, we've really been intentional about measuring the benefit of it. So our incident recordable rate, TR, IR, our DART, and our EMR, importantly, have gone down respectively 39, 37, and 31%.
That's incredible.
So those, obviously, we're doing a good job making sure our people do go home safe and around that. The next layer, because of those results, that moves into the insurance component of it, where our insurance premiums prior to eMOD were hovering about $1.1 million per year. They're now about $450,000.
Wow.
So that's $600,000 that goes to the bottom line incentive pool for our employees every year.
That's incredible. I mean, in a narrow margin industry, those are huge numbers, like,
of course.
Considerable.
Yeah, it is considerable. And that's largely also due to our workman's comp premiums. Our premiums before were $219 for $100 of payroll. Now it's 89 cents.
Wow.
And all those results happened as a company. We've doubled in size since we deployed eMOD, both in revenue, but also in hours worked. So the risk exposure, which is simply an hour worked, right, when you're working in a hazardous environment, that is doubled. And yet we've seen kind of that improvement across our indices for OSHA, as well as our insurance benefits. So like I said, the safety is one of those components of a job that if it's done well, the tide rises for all boats when it comes to performance. So
you've added some real nuance to the conversation with the metrics you've just shared. And I appreciate your transparency, because I don't know if everybody would be as forthcoming with that information, but I think it really cements the narrative that we're talking about here, where it's the humanity, the people obviously come first in this conversation, but you're taking care of your people. And as a result of that, you also have tremendous business improvements as well. And those are ones that can be measured financially and also in your ability to bid on work. I can remember as a proposal manager, every time our EMR would move around, it was like a kind of a panicking moment, not even thinking about what might have happened to cause that to, change. We're chasing pursuits, like we're grinding. And I know that number, if that goes up, we're going to win less work. And that's a scary prospect. Well, Kaitlin, do you have anything else to add to that as far as the business results that come from it? Because I know you span a lot more customers outside of Dome as well.
Yes. I think for all of our customers, the benefits and outcomes they're seeing are really based on the ability to address issues in real time. They're able to see the issues. They're able to identify, where they have gaps in their program and jump on them and take care of them right away, versus it's sitting in a binder or it's across multiple platforms and you can't really see where the issues may be. You can't see what needs to be addressed. And so having the ability to see everything on one platform in one spot, address it in real time within minutes, hours, not days, weeks, months, that's really been what's, for a lot of our customers, makes a difference.
Yeah, I can see that, especially if you have a lot of job sites or a big organization, the ability to keep tabs, especially if you might be a national company, is complex. And having access to that information, especially, artificial intelligence and everything coming out now allow us to analyze all of this information at a scale that was never feasible or possible for a safety supervisor or somebody on site anyway. So I think it's an exciting moment for safety, which I don't know if we could have said something along those lines 10 years ago, which I'm grateful for the work that you're doing and just the real conversation we're having here about some challenging topics at times. I do want to move into talking about mental health a little bit. And I think most people are aware that construction suffers some of the highest rates of suicide, burnout, and in other mental health challenges out of any industry in the United States and worldwide. And I think there's a lot of responsibility for all players that are touching this incredibly important industry to make a difference and do better. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stigma around mental health as well, where it's hard for folks to feel comfortable talking about it. I'd like to unpack that a little bit. As a starting point, I'd just love to hear your thoughts, both of your thoughts on mental health right now, how things are looking, especially with regards to psychological safety in this environment.
Yeah. So construction has the tendency to come across as like, you must be tough. You got to be strong. You got to push through it. Not much space for vulnerability at all.
Yeah.
And we are putting field crews through crazy, especially superintendents, and I can speak to as a superintendent. There's schedule crunches. There are budget crunches. You're working nights, weekends. So many superintendents are driving so far. And I think at times we forget the toll that takes on people.
Yeah.
For a superintendent, you have the risk, the operation risk, you have the field risk, you have the safety risk, the human risk, you have all of that. And it really does add up quite quickly. And then you have your own personal life outside of what's happening on the job site. And I think so commonly we look at exactly what's happening in the field. And we talk about these are people, but we forget sometimes that people have other things going on, and having someone drive 2 hours each direction or working nights, working weekends, that toll is not just a one-time thing. It adds up over time.
I've lived it personally. I burned out.
Yeah.
And I was on the proposal side, and just the endless march of RFPs coming into my inbox with insufficient resources to manage that. And, $400, $500 million projects on the line. And if I personally make a mistake, the company might not win that project. And for my ADHD, it was a wonderful thing in the sense that like there's a firm deadline and I know exactly what I need to do because it's written down in this piece of paper and we're going to deliver it. But long term for my mental health, I got to a point where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I am so tired, and I'm incredibly grateful that I was able to take my experience working for a number of GCs for a long time and move into the technology side of things. So all of my knowledge is still relevant, but for me, for a long time, RFP was a swear word. Like, I don't want to hear anything about that. Like, I am so tired, and I have empathy for the folks in the field because I was sitting at a computer. I was sitting at a desk, and the level of burnout is, I think it's different for folks who are out there putting their body on the line and doing that work.
It's funny. I think back and like part of me thrived, and I loved those crazy deadlines. I
did until I didn't.
Exactly. I loved the couple weeks sprint of nights and days and, these big pushes to hit these certain milestones. But eventually they catch up to you.
Yeah.
And the burnout is very real. And it's hard. Sometimes you're just in that motion that it's hard to catch yourself to realize until you're like, I am burnt out. I'm done. I'm toast. I need to take a step back. And I think that's where we start seeing mental health in the field specifically decline because we don't catch it early enough. And sometimes there is that mentality that you have to be tough. And if you speak up, you're soft.
Yeah. Gets rationalized.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think we need to make it easier for people to say, this is too much.
Yep.
I need a break. I need to take a step back. I need to take care of my family, myself, whatever it may be.
I didn't have that off-ramp that you're talking about as far as having somebody to talk to. And I remember I had a rough few weeks with a lot of crazy deadlines, and I had gotten sick. And a couple of things happened. The details are all relevant. But on a Friday, it's like, this isn't going well. And I quit on Monday. I came in and I resigned. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to be in a position where I could do that and make a pivot. And most people, I don't think, are in that position. And it just really resonates for me because I've lived it. And it was so frustrating to not be able to be forthcoming about how I felt and not feel like I had any resources. And again, I'm sitting at a desk, and I'm not in the field. I'm not in the weather. I'm not managing all of these things. And so I have tremendous empathy for anybody who might be feeling that way. Rob, I loved it. Do you have any additional thoughts you'd like to add as far as what Kaitlin
really
said?
What you both said just kind of resonates on a lot of levels. I think every industry is going to say they have their things that create anxiety and stress, and construction certainly has a lot of that as well. Tight budgets, tight schedules, difficult work environments, volatile situations, volatile personalities.
Yep.
All those come into play. And that's just at work. And to your point, people come to work with all the stuff they have going on in their lives at home that maybe makes work pale in comparison. You don't know. Right? And they have to bring that and work in that environment. It does create, I think there needs to be for people the start for psychological safety is, I think people have to feel like they have agency of their environment, and they have to have trust in the people that they work with and the support structures that they can avail themselves of. And I don't think construction as an industry has done a good job of letting people know they have that agency and giving them that trust. And I think coincidentally, safety and emotional safety do play a part in that, because I think in that sense, where if in the morning you're talking about your day in a calm, planning, proactive manner where you're collaborating with your team about, hey, how can we do what we need to do effectively, safety, supporting each other, that goes a good step of the way to providing that agency, to building that trust about, hey, I can speak to what's affecting me or my team today, and we can talk about it, work through it, get to a place where we all feel comfortable and safe about it. And I think, once again, that's the key component that has to be top of mind on any given day for it to be sustainable, repeatable, to create that environment.
And there's a lot of nuance in communicating to folks. Like, it's okay not to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to tell people that and try to find a path forward. And we're not going to solve this problem today in this room, unfortunately. I wish we could. But I'd love both of your thoughts on what are some of the things that we can start doing more effectively. And to come back to our original safety topic, if people aren't okay mentally, this shows up in the physical safety as well, because their ability to deliver their work and be safe and be proactive, depending on where their mental state is also diminished. And so this all really does come hand in hand. So I'm going to stop rambling. Kaitlin, any initial thoughts there? Like where do you think we can start doing better, even if it's small changes?
I think if we can start with field leadership and get the full participation and full buy-in of the changes that do need to be made in the field, working with them to go through the entire field teams. I see that, safety for us coming from the top down doesn't always work. Coming in at multiple points, making them feel heard and part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
I think every carpenter, every laborer, every journeyman apprentice needs to have a voice, even if it's just the opportunity to bring something to the table. Doesn't mean that everyone needs to act on everything that's brought up, but I do think that they need to feel that they are heard and that it's not just going to get kind of kicked down the curb and not addressed.
Rob, anything to add to that as far as some of the changes that we could start making?
Well, I think it starts with communication, right? If you have the environment where there's collaboration, where there can be communication, where people can get that trust, get that agency. There's no group of workers, I'll contend, that aren't more like, if there's a problem, construction workers want to solve it. And there's always a million ways to solve it. And I think it starts with, hey, something's not right today. I'm not right today. If that comes out, it's going to get addressed. It can get fixed. It can get handled. And I think getting people comfortable with being able to have that conversation, that they're in an environment where they have that trust, they have that support, there is that collaboration, that's a great place to start. And I think from there, like I said, there's no problem that can't be fixed or addressed, no goal that can't be achieved when you get a bunch of construction workers together. And I think that's one of them where that could be the case too.
Yeah. I mean, I think folks love this industry because of the problem solving that they get to do, because it's interesting. There are so many unique circumstances on every single project that are often exciting to fix. Sometimes they're challenging and frustrating as well. But the communication aspect you're talking about, I think also how you communicate with people goes a long way, because I have been on the receiving end of a screaming tirade from executives at companies I've worked at before. I've watched or overheard, because a closed conference room, just because you shut the door doesn't mean that the whole company can't hear you guys screaming at each other. And the language that's used in that trickles downward, because think about a junior superintendent or somebody who is just a project engineer, who they're just cutting their teeth in the industry, and they're sitting in the headquarters and they're hearing the co-founders or the executives or the project directors, whoever, screaming at each other. You've set an example for a young person for when they step into their first leadership role. You've shown them how you expect to lead. But I take so much issue with that. And like, if you're the boss, you don't have to yell. You're the boss. Like, there's no reason to scream at somebody, even if you're impassioned about the work that's happening. We have to do better. And I think communicating the nuance that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to talk about these issues, and vulnerability has a place in
I think
construction.
celebrating it.
Yeah.
Celebrating.
Recognizing it.
Yeah.
Yes.
When people do bring something to your attention, okay.
Yeah.
We hear you. We see it. Let's fix it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you is just not said enough in this industry.
I'd agree with that.
And I think if we are able to thank people for bringing things to our attention, we can address them then, and they'll at least feel heard.
Yeah. And not coming in with a punitive response as well, because I know that happens, whether it's somebody reporting a safety incident or being vulnerable and then having something come back at them as repercussion, even if it's just judgment in the moment from the person that's hearing whatever words are being said. It's one thing to empower people to speak up, but you also have to listen and listen sincerely and react in that moment in a way that's positive and encouraging. And not everybody knows how to do this, and that's all right, but we also have to train people to do this. It's like somebody was the best carpenter on their crew for 10 years, and then they get promoted to being the leader of the crew of carpenters. If you haven't trained that person how to be a leader, they might not be successful in that new role. And so it's the responsibility of all of the organizations to encourage and show folks, this is how you navigate these situations and this is how you talk about it. And you've got to lead by example, because if you don't, why is anybody going to do what you're saying if you're yourself doing the exact opposite?
I think you say leadership, but I think it's also a bit about being just human.
Yes.
Right. The lexicon in our society is now, if you see something, say something, right? To your example earlier, if you're somebody wanting to say something, but yet you hear behind closed doors screaming, are you really in that trust environment where you feel like you can say something?
Is this a safe space?
Right.
Maybe
you're not going to, right? And I think that's the sort of thing where it's really incumbent on folks, team leaders, everybody listening. When somebody does say something that you do exactly like you say, lead by example. Tell me about what's going on. What can we do? Yeah. Let's talk about it. How you react to it will indicate whether you're building that trust and that collaboration or putting a blanket over it. Yep. And I think that's the key. Is you can train all you want, but how you act in the moment is what's going to drive you in the right direction.
I agree entirely. And I appreciate you both sharing your perspective and context here, because it is a heavy topic. And unfortunately for a lot of folks, it's uncomfortable to talk about. It shouldn't be, but we have to accept the reality in the room. And it took me a long time to feel comfortable speaking about these topics and being more vulnerable as a person. And I think it's just incredibly important for folks to be transparent about how they're feeling. But, the organizations have responsibility to make sure that those signposts are up to tell people it's okay to bring issues to the table. I remember distinctly the first manager that I ever had who told me very clearly, she said, it's okay to tell me anything, to come to me and tell me how you're feeling. I'm not going to punish you for that, and I want to talk about it. And nobody up until that point had ever said anything like that to me in my entire life, at work in particular. And it took me a minute to digest that, where I go like, is this a trap? Like where are we at? And thank gosh it wasn't. But I'll never forget that leadership moment. I'll say who it was. She's been on the podcast a number of times. Allison Scott. She works here at Autodesk. Absolutely wonderful. One of the best leaders I've ever worked for. And she lives that truth and communicated it so thoughtfully and so intentionally. And I'll never forget it. And I take it to every leadership opportunity I have, because I realized that interesting inflection point of just hearing it and going, oh, this is different. And I'll never forget it. I'm very grateful for it.
It's the highest form of integrity, when your words match your deeds.
Absolutely. Well, I have one more question for both of you. And Kaitlin, I've asked you this before, so I'm going to let you stew on it and see if you answer the same. I don't remember how you asked the last time. But Rob, what is one tool you use on every project, no matter what you're working on?
eMOD.
eMOD. All right. That's cheating.
Well, obviously, it's true. I think some of our accounting softwares, we have to do cards. So we do use that on every job too. But every endeavor we engage on for any project, we use that. It's the highest form of our kind of both delivering the operational excellence that we promise our clients, but also fulfilling our culture of sending people home safe and making sure we don't expose them to risks or hazards. So that is something we do that really touches both of those profoundly.
I love it. It makes a lot of sense, and also makes sense why you're both sitting in front of me today. So Kaitlin, how about you? What's one tool you use on every project? And you can't say eMOD.
I'm pretty sure I said an iPad last time so that I could use eMOD.
Well, it has to be eMOD. You're the CEO of it.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I'd say, that and PPE, every job.
I like it. Do you have a certain brand of boots that you like to wear? I know boots are a common topic out in construction. I still have the original pair of steel toes I bought when I was like
My
in 17.
boots are so banged up. They
That's
are.
awesome.
They squeak so bad when I walk in them, but I can't. Putting on a new pair of boots going onto a job site, I just can't do it.
Yeah, well, otherwise you're out in your backyard rubbing them on the concrete to make them look a little scuffed up before you get there. Because I think everybody's seen the pristine, brand new vests and boots and everything, and it's like, well, I'm not going to take that person seriously.
Exactly.
Even though that shouldn't be the case, it is sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. I appreciate, again, both of you joining me for this conversation. I think it's an incredibly important one, and I hope the folks out there listening have had some nuggets as far as both the physical safety out in the world, but also the mental side of it, because they're two sides of the coin and incredibly important to the success of the construction industry. For everybody out there listening, of course, you've likely figured out at this point, you're listening to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast, and I'm your host, Eric Thomas. If you have any questions for me, want to reach out, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Eric Thomas that works at Autodesk. And of course, if you're an audio listener, head over to YouTube if you want to see this absolutely beautiful space that we're sitting and recording in right now here in lovely San Francisco. So until the next time, goodbye.